This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains spoilers from the Grishaverse as well as topics surrounding sexual assault, physical violence, and racism.
Hi everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the YA literature and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are discussing The Black Witch. We have a lot to say about this book, and other people have had a lot to say about this book, so we will just get to it. The Black Witch is a lot of things. It is something that I read when it came out in 2017, and I don't think... Actually, no, I know. Looking back, I did not realize how powerful it kind of was and how reflective it kind of was of the environment that was to come in later years. I find that kind of interesting.
Do you mean like it being such a niche genre?
No, I mean like the political kind of climate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very reflective, and it's easy to see now, like looking back in 2017 and like everything. But at the time, I was just like, ooh, cool book, witches. I like it about it. You know, I didn't go deeper about it. So I'm very excited to kind of jump into it now. So please, Jess, we haven't talked about it. Take it away.
I will say I pretty much went into this blindly. That's just my new MO. And that, you know, and then I have to stop and take a second to be like, wait, what am I reading about? And I think the first, even after the prologue, it talks about her, that the main character is Ellerin, and it talks about her being 3 or 4, and then it jumps 14 years. And I go, is everybody always 17? Is this just something I have to learn about? I liked it, but I was shocked. I remember the first couple pages and chapters, I just kept sending you just reactions of my face of the things that were being said and the comparisons that I was making in my head. And I was very uncomfortable because the topics that were being discussed. And you would respond saying, think of it like The Handmaid's Tale. And that comparison really kind of set the tone for the rest of the book. And it helped me because even with The Handmaid's Tale, it's all dystopian, future dystopian world. But the writer even said everything that's written in this book that people are being shocked about are things that have happened, are happening, or currently, or being set up politically for the future. And I think that realization is set. I think just having that comparison and understanding that tone really, it forced you to be like, wow, we're shitty people.
And this is a different kind of fantasy book than other books that we've read. Obviously, it's part of a series. There's 3 books, 3 main novels, and then there's 2 novellas, and then there's another one coming out in September. So it's very exciting.
Well, part of the reason we wanted to do this is I said, I forget whatever we had discussed previously. I go, I need a book. I don't know what. I do know that I want to stay in fantasy. And then I just kind of threw it to you. I'm like, you tell me, what should I? And that's kind of really how I went into it blindly. I go, give me something. And you said, here, we'll do this because I want to talk about it. I said, fine. And here we are.
And I do. I really do like to talk about this. You mentioned that Ellerin is 17. This is YA. This is, firmly YA. There is 0 spice in this book. 0, negative numbers of spice here.
The little glancing scenes. I'm like, oh, that's cute. But my reaction videos to you, I was very oh my gosh, this bitch. And I'm like, oh, but I feel bad for her. And then she would go back to doing something shitty. And then, later on I was feeling, well, she was 17. She is 17. Haven't we all acted out of spite at some point? I mean, whether it was 17 or now, there were certain things I'd be like, I'd burn the bitch too.
Well, wait. Let's back up because I guarantee you that people have not read this book. So they're probably like, what is going on? So this book is full of tropes. It's full of tropes, and I love tropes. And it has some of my favorite ones. It has a chosen one. It has a prophecy. It has found family. It has magic school. And Jess, you said that you hadn't read anything else that was magic school besides like Harry Potter and like the magicians, like we've watched.
Yeah, the magicians. And even that was, I didn't even read that. I have the first book on the shelf, but I've only watched and like read Harry Potter for magic school. So it was very uncharted territory. I mean, at least it was familiar. Every time they said another magical being, they were like, Selkies. I go, Selkies. And then they said lupine. I go, werewolves. I was all like, I loved the werewolves.
Just a little side note, I ended up writing down just a few of my favorite like magic school trope books. I don't know. I just got really excited. So it'd be like Shadowhunters, The Name of the Wind, The Magicians, The Ninth House, Dangerous Education, The Magisterium, The Witcher, The Winx, saga.
Wait, The Witcher with Henry Cavill?
Yeah.
That's a magic school book? That man.
Well, okay. Well,
is he a teacher? Because Professor Henry can get it.
I will give nothing away. To be fair, I have played the video games, so I am not and I've only watched the show once, and I haven't read the books because I'm a shitty fan. So I can't tell you exactly what Henry does in the show, but I know there is a school setting. So.
I'm just going to watch for him because that man is Rowan Whitethorn.
For real. Two other tropes that are in here. I mean, there's others, but these are the main ones. Star-crossed lovers. And of course, the one that kind of bugs me is the white savior.
I know we said the chosen one. However, there's still more to be discovered there that we don't get in this first book, is what I've learned. We think she's the chosen one. She obviously doesn't. It's set up that she is, but as of right now, technically on paper, the pieces are there, but it's not, it hasn't come to fruition.
So I did I don't want to say I did a lot of research on this, but I did some research on this. I went on the hashtag. I looked, and there's some people that are out there that are like, this book is kind of like, what if Hermione were raised by the Malfoys? I was like, interesting take on it. Also, this book does something that I find really interesting is that it switches the typical YA strip a female like of her power thing, because when we are in the book, like that has happened, like clearly, obviously, right? Like she is bound in some way. That's quite clear. She has like a physical reaction. This is Ellerin. She has a physical reaction when she's wand tested, right? In front of everybody, in front of the military at the school for the first time. It hurts her. Like she feels like this like sucking up of power from the floor, and it bursts forward, and then it rebounds, and then her hand is like,
what it kind of reminded me of is in Shadow and Bone when the Darkling goes to Alina, and Alina's like, I don't have any power. And it's just kind of stirring there. Mm-hmm. And then she had the wand, and that she was wand tested because you have that flashback with her and her uncle. So he knows that the power is there, and he wants to protect her from everybody, which we find out. So even when she gets wand tested at the school, that power is still stirring there. And every time she's like kissing Lucas, or she's Lucas, fucking Chad.
It's true though.
But it's just stirring there. And it just reminded me of Alina, where she was pushing down the powers, or she just wasn't familiar. Like there was a feeling there. She wasn't familiar with it and kind of ignored it or disregarded it. But then we later find out towards the end when she's helping her brother Tristan, she's starting to make the connection. It's like maybe I don't have this, but I'm like a booster.
Right, because she touches him, and he destroys the military base and stuff. Like it's good, and she's using the white wand of legend, quote maybe.
In my head, since we're doing the rewatch, I was like, in my head, it looks like a smaller white ash or White Oak.
Yeah, from the originals.
Vampire, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so good. And I kind of see that too. So the trope though being that you take power away from your females, this is kind of the opposite of that. Like, we know that she's really powerful, and this is kind of her like breaking out of that in like slow kind of ways, which is reflective of her like growth as a person. So like, she's kind of figuring out that she has, a little bit of magical power, and then she's broadening her horizons and not being such a fucking bigot and racist, like it kind of opens up, which I think is really cool.
I also think I don't want to say it's timely, because we should never be racist and bigoted in the first place. However, timely in the sense that there are a lot of people who have become more aware of the choices and the decisions and the lifestyles that they were living for the last, basically till 2020. And then there was an epiphany. And then there was, really younger generations educating the older generations in their life. And then those, just a light bulb, and not just the older generations, just a light bulb coming up on some people's head to be like, wait, why was I acting this shitty my entire life? And that's what I really like about Elloren's character. And obviously her brothers call her out on it early on when she is acting that way.
Yeah, Rafe and Tristan are just like, ooh, why are you talking like that? You're being an asshole. And they're kind of like, you're being really embarrassing. But this is because of, and I like the world building in this book. Elloren and her brothers are Gardnerian. They have a slur about them. They're called roaches because they dress in all black, like high collars, like to the wrists, to the ankles type dresses, silks, very, very conservative and incredibly religious. It's really good. And their colors are like black and green, and you can only wear certain color. I like it. I like the world building. I especially like this little detail that all the Gardnerian skin shimmers green, and it's enough that it will light up like a dark area. I like that. That's kind of a cool little detail.
It almost, I what I like. I mean, I think I've been just in so many fantasy worlds where it was very human-like beings, and they're still kind of human here also. But it kind of also reminded me of Folk of the Air with Elfhame, and you would just have various fantasy races also with the Shimmer, or like and how the King of Elfhame learned to hate. You had the dancing tree on the table. You have Matic. I just, I like that there were so many different races.
Yeah, there's the Amaz, there's the Lupine, the Fae are talked about, the Selkies are there, the Icarals, we haven't even talked about the Icarals, and then the Celts, but that's a race. And then the Gardnerians, we should mention, are all black hair and green eyes. Creepy. It's creepy, right? Like, ooh.
Like you shared the one fan art and we're like, oh, they're all the same.
Yeah, they're all the same.
Which is very, between that and we haven't even talked about the armbands.
Ooh, the armbands.
Like,
oh
it just
God.
had all black hair, green eyes. Like, what's the other equivalent? It was just very...
It is. And the leader... Okay, so if anyone's watched Game of Thrones, you could equate this to the High Sparrow and the rise of his, whole movement against Cersei. So... Think of that when you're thinking about this. So Marcus Vogel is a priest, and there's like a government structure. And in this like government structure, a religious structure, they have big white birds that do like prophecy. And did you know in German, Vogel means bird?
I did not.
So that's just like this like little subtle connection. Marcus Vogel, Marcus Bird, and then the birds are the watchers. And it's just like kind of like, it's just like a subtle tie-in. Yeah. So So Marcus, the priest, is, in my mind, very much a Dolores Umbridge type character. He gets into power. He manipulates his way into power. And then he starts making all these decrees about stuff like, oh my God. No, I see your face. Go.
Well, like, I'm just thinking how all of a sudden overnight he became like, that needed to be the catalyst. At first I go, oh my God, I can't believe it happened so fast. But then I remembered, I go, that needs to be the catalyst of this book that kind of carries like the next steps. There's no way you can't tell me that there was a murder, like that was like an assassination, and they're playing it off like it wasn't, because he was to be the immediate person in power. And they knew the second he became in power, he would, like you said, I mean, it's like Dolores Umbridge and had a baby. And that baby was this Michael Marcus Vogel, whatever his name is.
Yeah, no, it's really awful. He's really awful. And then, terrible, terrible people. Elloren's aunt is a terrible person. So I think we should mention that Elloren looks exactly like her grandmother, and her grandmother is like a war hero to the Gardnerian people. She's like the most powerful witch that has ever lived. And that's another thing that I like, this really restrictive, conservative society is waiting for this all-powerful woman to come and save them, from the evil, like, heathens. I like that. It's interesting.
Well, I mean, if we're going to talk about women, I think it was one of the characters, Andras or something. They were talking about the creator, and the creator was a woman. And instead of Adam and Eve, she created 3 women. And then in the story of their story of creation, she gave the 3 women
the fist.
And she gave them like husbands in a way. Like, it's almost like she created Eve and then gave Eve Adam. And then instead of the rib coming from Adam, you had the wrist.
Yeah.
But like the men had an extra wrist bone or something. Like, it was so subtle, but I just loved the female leads, the female like powers. Like, these are who they're not glorifying, but these are who, like, they're gods and who they worship, and their stories like of the beginning. And like you even said, Elloren's grandmother was this end all be all witch, and now they're waiting for the second prophecy that the Black Witch will return.
Right. Just to go back to what you were saying about the Amaz and the creation story with the fist. So Andras is telling everyone about that. And he says, it's so fucking frustrating. My mother makes us do this because in their culture, they only have women. And she had Andras, who's a boy. So she had to leave the like tribe or whatever. And he has to go through these like daily ritual, like purifications pretty much, because he's a man and he has all of this, like, I'm going to say sin, but I don't really think that's the word for it. In this culture.
You mean sin in the way like how we have original sin?
Yeah.
You get like baptized or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, to like cleanse. He says like a cleansing. He has to like cleanse himself. But he gets really frustrated. He's like, my mother's a reasonable woman. She's the fucking science professor. She knows that like my bones are the same as her bones. Like, we have the same, but the religion is, he's like questioning his religion, and like Elloren's doing the same thing, and her brothers are doing the same thing, and it's very like everyone is quietly and at the end not so quietly going through their own sort of transformations. And since nobody talks about this book, nobody talks about that, and I think that is a very realistic part of this book. Everybody going to college, mixing with each other, learning about each other, and then realizing that like maybe what they were raised with is complete bullshit.
I loved, and to me that's not even a trope. That is real life. It might be fantasy, but this is, I mean, every little aspect of like, even when Elloren goes to her dorm room, she is essentially, her roommates are Icarals.
Icaral demons.
Icaral demons who are mixed. One is Icaral and Fae, who's winter.
And she's a princess.
Yeah. And even in her kingdom, she's not Fae, she's elfish.
She's elf. Yeah, she's an elf.
Right. Her brother is literally her protector because she can't go back to her kingdom because her kingdom wants her dead because she's half Icaral. It's all very sad. And you can tell through each of these characters' stories, like for some of them, the only place that they're accepted and can be themselves is supposed to be this school, this university. And even then they're not accepted because there's racism amongst each of the Fae. It's not just one race obviously the Gardnerians are just racist all around to everybody. But each group of people have their own biases towards the others and their own slurs. And it's not okay. But I like there's this part where Ellerin goes to her dorm room and she says, who would have thought, like, I have 2 Icarals, I have a Lupine, we have a Selkie, I have a Celt, like, waiting for me. Like, everybody is just, and it was almost like a moment where she's like, this is actually pretty cool. Like, look at all of us.
Let's talk about something that isn't really cool, and that is wand fasting. Yeah.
It's not cool for a lot of reasons. You could argue that people are like, oh, well, okay, why don't you explain wand fasting first? And then I'll comment.
Wand fasting is essentially marriage, more or less. So ideally, if everything were perfect, then you would, as a Gardnerian, you would find somebody that you love and your affinity lines would match up and, complement each other. And then you would be wand fasted, which is basically marriage. And you have these, lines. I picture them as like tattoos, around your like wrists and like kind of going up your arms, in lieu of like wedding rings and like engagement bands like that. That's
but not like how Feyre and Rhys are.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Like very different. And the age for doing that is progressively getting younger and younger because more conservatives are being put into the government and they're trying to keep the race pure. That's wand fasting.
And I understand how and wand fasting, if you like part of under the new ruling, if you're not wand fasted by a certain age, they pick your wand fasted for you. So there you have the arranged marriage, which is still very prominent in some cultures. But then they also go ahead and discuss being wand fasted as young as 13. And if that doesn't set you off alone, like 13, you are a child. I understand women, the second you get your period, whether it's 12 or 13, you're a woman. No, you are a child. You are a minor. That is something that I will not stand for, even if we're going to try to say, oh, well, this is fantasy. No, that is one thing that I believe we should collectively agree upon. There's there's certain things in life that should be a universal thing.
Right. And that kind of just goes back to like a reflection, like this book is kind of a reflection of what is going on in society. And it's just like kind of difficult and nobody really wants to talk about it, but there it is.
It's uncomfortable. I mean, and I get it like that. And that's the whole thing that I know that we had discussed even through our reactions a little bit throughout the week where we kept saying, this is stuff that's happening now. This isn't a past tense. This is all still very relevant, and it forces you, or it should, to want to think, to want to educate yourself and saying like, what the hell are we doing? Like, if the aliens come and blow us up, then you know what? Can't blame them.
Let's kind of set the stage here. So Ellerin's aunt wants her to wand fast to Lucas Gray, who's like the most eligible bachelor of the season, or, whatever. And Ellerin, who was raised in like the backwoods with her uncle making violins and not knowing a damn thing about anything.
And let's not forget, she's not allowed to know how to make a violin. She's basically only allowed to sit pretty and breed.
Right.
Because her uncle had to fight for her to go to college.
Right. And to be an apothecary, which is an acceptable
female
occupation.
Yeah.
So Ellerin, she goes to the city and her aunt's like, look, I want you to wand fast before you go to university. Everybody is already wand fasted, which kind of turns out to be true. And Ellerin's like, I can't because I promised my uncle. And then Ellerin's introduced to like high society, right? She's introduced and she makes an enemy right away. She's got the mean girls, Fallon, who's a level 5, and Fallon, who is rumored to be the next Black Witch. So obviously they don't get along.
Also, the levels, just like for reference, it's how much magical power you essentially have as the characters. So they have level 1, level 2, level 5 is the highest you can be. And yes, with Fallon, I felt like it was like society, like you said, coming out in society, all the Debs, just such flashbacks.
And Ellerin having to play the violin in front of everybody and like fucking up for the first half. It was so cringe. I was like, oh my God, please no, please stop. And then with Lucas from Empire Records. Lucas comes in and saves the day. And obviously right off the bat, I love Lucas. I mean, of course, very powerful, bad boy, black hair, green eyes, but that's creepy because they're all like that. He's sassy and dangerous and impulsive and we like Lucas, and Lucas, nice gift giver, I have to say. Yeah. Very nice. Gives her a violin, gives her a nice pendant. I don't know
how I feel about that pendant.
Right? It's a little bit weird.
I don't like it, especially because of the note that he wrote with it. I don't trust that pendant for anything.
And especially because Winter, who is an empath, was like, you got to be fucking careful about that shit. It's like, okay. I trust you, Winter. So we have Lucas. Lucas comes in and saves her, and then Lucas is the commander of the military. He's in the military, obviously, because everybody is. And immediately, right off the bat, he's like, go to the ball with me. And we're like, what the fuck is this ball? Well, the ball's like months away. Like,
it's the Yule Ball. I love a Yule Ball.
We love a good Yule Ball.
Selena goes to a Yule Ball. We love the Yule Ball in Harry Potter. Like, I want a Yule. Maybe I should do a Yule Ball for my birthday instead of a birthday.
Yeah. Oh, we should do a Yule Ball. But the Yule Ball is months and months away. And at the end of the book, we're not even at the Yule Ball. The book ends before we get to the ball with Lucas. We like Lucas, but Ellerin, because she refuses to wand fast, has to pay her way through university. She has like work study. So she has to work in the kitchen, and she gets like the fuck bullied out of her in the kitchens. She gets like kicked into the pig shit and the pig slop, and those girls are so mean to her.
They're so mean to her. And I go back and forth with Ellerin because I'm like, I feel so bad for her. And then she would do something, and then I would be like, well, you know what? Pot kettle. You can't be doing one thing but not the other. And then I started thinking about, well, you do have she's in defense mode, because she even like talks to Lucas at one point because she kept getting bullied. And she goes up to him and she goes, I don't care how you do it. Get her the fuck out of here. And honestly, I probably would have done the same in that moment where you just react through emotion and not through logic. But he takes that and runs with it. And she's like, well, I didn't mean like that, because he went off the deep end with how he handled it. And then it's like, you remember that they're 17, and then you start thinking about bullies, and like, sometimes you just have bullies that are shitty people because they're shitty people. And then you hear about like bullies that they've been bullied. So then that's their defense mechanism. I'm not saying, obviously, there just needs to be a therapist in every single one of these books. But yeah, I was just back and forth the whole time. You feel bad for her. But like I said, Lucas is hot in those moments where he goes, so the emotional terrorism that he has is kudos.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The dressing down that he does to everybody in the kitchen, in the end doesn't actually help anything. It kind of just establishes Lucas as a aggressive kind of like problem solver that she can reliably go to for help. because she does. I like that. I like Lucas. And then Lucas. So it's like Lucas, but Lucas isn't in the book very much. You know,
No.
he's like off doing his own thing. But then we have Yvonne, and Yvonne is a Celt. It's hinted that he's a fire fae, like under like glamour. And he has this like searing gaze, right? You know, we love YA.
Green eyes.
He's got the green eyes. He's got the red hair. You know, he can talk to dragons. Where he can heal, right? He's a gifted healer. He heals the little girl, and he heals Ellerin at the end. So, you know, Yvonne, but he's angry. He's surly. He hates Ellerin. Does he hate Ellerin?
He hates Ellerin because of what Ellerin represents.
Right. Which is not her fault, but and that's another thing you say, you struggle, you know, you feel for Ellerin. I do too. Like, she's a carbon copy clone pretty much,
right,
of her grandmother, who is revered. There's statues of her, you know, and there were all these expectations for Ellerin, and she's a level 1. You know, at this point, it's really, I don't know. It's very interesting the way that you say it. Ellerin is a difficult character to kind of. She's easy to relate to, but she's frustrating at the same time.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I think what's I don't want to say it's interesting, but like, we know who her grandmother is to the Gardenarians specifically. She's held to this standard that she obviously can't match within her own community. And then we later find out more history to Ellerin's grandmother, because when you think about it, you're finding out history. And history is always going to be written by the victors, and but that doesn't make it factual, which Ellerin learns by seeking out non-biased opinions of the true history of her people, of other races, of Earthia, because she initially went to her professor, who is Gardenarian, and he was just all the praises, all this stuff. And then she goes, you know what, that doesn't make sense. How is that going to be factual history? So then she went to a history professor, and she goes, I want to know more. Like, I need to question everything, because there's no one side to every story, and it opens up a whole different world. And even when Yvonne, he was saying he would just like see the books that she was carrying and question what she was doing. And even her finding out about how her clothes are made. Oh, that was something that I thought of, like her understanding the history and the process of how what she was wearing came to be produced. That's very similar to what happens now too, you know, in these factories. So I think it was just her becoming more aware. But like you said, she would have this growth, and then she would have a negative internal monologue about someone. And I go, you know, I'm really pissed at you. It reminded, you know how for you with Nesta, it was like every time she did one step forward, she was doing 2 steps back. Yeah. That's how I felt with Ellerin. I was like, oh, yay, progress. No, you were so close.
We haven't even talked really about Jared and Diana, the Lupines. We love them, obviously. Love them. I love Diana. I love you have it in your notes, so you say it.
Oh, I love Diana. Diana gives me such Danica from Crescent City vibes. And it's not just because she's lupine. It's how she carries herself. I mean, there is a description of her where, like, I think there was just the description, the personality, the confidence. Loved. There is a line that I really liked in the ebook. It was page 386. And I read this and I listened to this, where her and Rafe, who is one of Ellerin's brothers, they're talking about, Rafe is saying different cultures have different ideas about things. And Diana, being Diana, she was like, well, they are deluded. lupines are correct. And she says it so matter of fact, which I know like that's part of the issue with this book is like each race thinks that their race is the best. But then she kind of backs it up saying, look, we're not making people wand fast at 13. We're being respectful. We're not taking other people's lands. We're being mated because we love each other. And at it like, and there's consent there. And consent is something you see throughout the book where it's either there or not, as we learn with Aisley, who she's wand fasted to, is all being, you know, there's no consent there whatsoever. Jared is like, he knows it. He's physically ill that he can't do anything about it because he knows the stigma that comes with lupine. So he's just constantly, I love Jared and Aisley. So like, I'm going to be pulling for them this whole time.
Her story is really fantastic because like her dad is really high up in the Mage Council and her family is very, very conservative. Something that we haven't mentioned yet is that the Gardnerian Society, you are expected to have like a lot of children because it's your job to like go out and populate the world with mages because mages are the chosen ones. Like, woo damn. But she one of my favorite moments with her is when they're passing notes in class, right? And Jared passes her a note and he's like, what are you reading? And she writes back with the title and then he like copies down a poem and then she flips to the page and like lines it up and she's like, and that is kind of like a backhanded compliment that she gives him. She's like, I didn't know that like lupines read poetry. It's like, why would you think that? But then like her dad is the ambassador to the lupines and he like spread all of these like weird, twisted like rumors about the lupine people and he hates them. So they are very much a star-crossed lover trope to the extreme.
Even to the point where, you know how we were saying how Gardnerians are expected to procreate for, you know, and just populate. And her sister's now older than her. And Ellerin makes a comment to it. She goes, how many more kids are there? Because all the, like, not even all, some of the nieces and nephews came to visit her at university and the kids are bringing like their wooden toys and basically everybody is everybody's the villain and the Gardnerians are the heroes. And then the cookies. How did that not like,
Ooh. No, tell them. So the cookies, they just have the cookies and they're in the shape of Icaro wings. And the tradition for the cookies is like you snap the wings and then you eat them. Like,
yeah, basically snap the wings, evil laugh, like, and then like dunk them in milk. How?
Because Icaros So the prophecy, the whole thing with Icaros is that the Icaral demons are gonna rise up and like take over, right? And they are gonna kill everybody, and they're out for Ellerin. They're out for the next Black Witch. And they think that's Ellerin. And part of Ellerin's like torture or bullying from her aunt is to force her to live with two Icaros who racist, bigoted Ellerin is afraid of when she gets there. So that's the whole like background with that.
Because she's been taught to be.
Yeah, she's been taught to be that way.
Afraid of them.
But
which is also continue.
Oh, I was gonna say, but not only her. The fear of Icaros is kind of is in all of the other races and cultures, demons. And it is weird because it's revealed that they are, dragons, and they pop up. They pop up in all of the peoples that populate Earthia, and there's no way to predict, which is interesting. Which is why why everybody's out for the Icaros, because the prophecy is that the Icaros is going to come and kill the Black Witch, and then Sage Gaffney, who just so happens to be Ellerin's neighbor in the backwoods, had a baby, broke her wand fasting and had a baby, and her baby was an Icaral. So that is how all of that connects. Yes. Ooh.
Well, and I was thinking there's a part in the book where they all decide that they're going to work together because they want to help the Selkie, and they make it a point to say, like, here we all are working together. We don't really know each other. Can we it's that, what's the, what am I thinking of? When you're in a room,
Icebreaker.
Yeah. So they're basically doing this terrible icebreaker of like how they get to know who they are or whatever. And they're kind of defining themselves a little bit. And Winter is so negative about herself because she's an it girl, because that's what she was taught, even about herself. And I love that Diana was like, excuse you, why are you speaking? Like, everybody needs Diana as a hype girl, because she goes, look at the value that you bring to this. You are not those things that you're saying. You are a good person. You are here. We are, I loved her. My heart hurt for Winter in that moment. And then you got Diana here. I'm like, yes, queen. I love her.
And then, of course, the other it girl, Ariel, got sent off to an insane asylum and lived there her whole life. And they used drugs to sedate her. And now she has like the drugs at school, and she has these like manic episodes, and then she's like drugged half of the time. And she can talk to the animals and the chickens and then the dragon at the end.
Yeah, if it had wings, basically, like there were, if every, I guess, certain it girls have like a kindred, and kindred is is different for everyone. And her kindred, which would be animals that you can talk to, happen to be anything with wings. Mm-hmm. So she talks to the dragons and the owls and the chickens and so many animals. Even Elrond's like, do you know what it's like to live with two chickens? And Yvonne's like, they're called it girls. And she's like, no, I'm not talking about my friends.
And that kind of shows where Elrond is and where she has gotten to. She's having a conversation with Yvonne, which she hadn't had before. Obviously, they didn't talk. And then she's saying like, no, they have names. Like she goes through this really realistic, slow process of slowly learning about everything. And at the end of the book, she has like a very steamy like moment, right? Kind of like, glances or whatever with Yvonne. But I like the way the book ends, because it ends with Tierney and Elrond like joining the resistance, right?
Closing line is like not it. I knew I wanted to read the second book, and it sealed it for me. I go, we're going in. Like, you can easily, I could finish this podcast and be like, okay, I'm gonna go start the second book now. Bye.
Yeah, because it's good. That's the thing. Like, it's good. It has all of these characters. Like, we haven't really even talked about the professors. Like, what's kind of like a subplot in this book is what's going on politically. And Elrond, in her process of educating herself, starts reading basically like the news. She starts reading the news and like what's going on with her government. And she starts noticing that the professors are showing bias.
Some of them are, it's not even a quiet bias. It is an open bias, and not just amongst the professors, but the students too. And Elrond and Tierney, they keep trying to be like, look, I want to stay out of it. I want to stay out of it. And at the same time, some of the students, which rightfully so, called Elrond out on it, on her privilege. She's like, you didn't need to. They were telling her, you don't know about this because of your privilege. It never affected you. So why? So of course you wouldn't know. And I think that was, again, that's very timely, for awareness for all of us. There's privilege that comes with, there's a lot of intersectional privilege that comes with living, really.
And you're talking about privilege. Tierney's entire existence is based on the privilege of a Gardnerian. She is a full-blooded water fae who, and you were like, you're like, oh, I'm so frustrated with Elrond. She sees this girl and she says she's so fucking ugly, like the ugliest girl she's ever seen. But we learn that Tierney is the ugliest girl that Elrond has ever seen, because she's glamored to be that way so that she kind of like scoots under the radar.
Right.
And she's not wand-fasted. And what is happening with her is that when Bogle is elected and he is putting out all of these edicts, he says that when you are wand-fasted, which you have to be by, I think, 18, they're going to do a purity test on you, your partner, and your families. So Tierney and her family cannot undergo that process because they are glamored water fae and they will react to iron. So that is what really, really spurs Ellerin to join the resistance, of course, breaking out a military dragon. Oh my God. I don't know if you realize this. This is kind of a throwaway line in the book, but did you realize that the military dragons, all of the military dragons are people?
Yes.
Oh my God. I did not catch that the first read through.
I did because what happened? Oh, because of the connection that Winter had, when she puts the Naga, the dragon, and connects her with Yvonne. I keep wanting to say his name wrong. But I didn't think Yvonne was fire fae, like a glamored fire. I thought he was part dragon. I thought he was like a shifter, like a dragon shifter.
Yeah. But then they say that all of the military dragons are wyvern shifters that have been forced by magic into their dragon form
and
permanently.
Then binded. Yeah, they're binded into their dragon form because Yvonne said, they were asking to heal Naga, and Yvonne's like, I can't heal her in this form. And that was my click.
Oh yeah. It's fucking crazy. And we haven't talked about Marina. Marina is the Selkie. Selkies are seals that when they shed their skin, they can have human form. They're Selkies in the Folk of the Air. But
with Nicasia, right? They're the Selkies come out from the water, right? Okay.
But in this world, in this realm, they are taken and sold as sex slaves, and their skins are hoarded so they can't speak and transfer back, and they're weak, and it's really fucking awful. And this group of rebels, I guess, come together, and their first kind of mission is to save and hide the Selkie that they name Marina. They hide her in the North Tower where Diana ends up living too. So it's the five of them.
I love Diana's appearance. And she goes, if I don't live here, I'm going to kill her. I'm going to fucking kill her. I'm going to kill them all if I don't have to have another day being their roommate. And she just makes her, you cannot tell me that Diana isn't a Leo, because the main character energy, Ellerin, I love her. I love Diana.
And Diana walks around naked all the time, and she's very proud of herself. And the relationship that Diana has with Rafe is really lovely. They start off just hiking together, and they both really love being outside, and they really bond over nature. And then Diana kind of that they're falling for each other, obviously.
Right.
But then Diana, just kind of out of the blue, is I am falling in love with you, Rafe. And Rafe is just I am already deeply in love with you. And it's just oh, well, communication.
I like where she says, you're just saying that because I didn't rip your arm off. He's like, yes, that is the only reason I like you said, I really love their relationship. I love them so much. It's healthy. It's realistic. There's a respect there since the first day. Even how Rafe approaches different conversations with her, he's very aware that different cultures handled, everybody has different cultures, and there should be a respect there. Just like when, you go to, depending on if you travel regularly, you're going to dress a certain way out of respect. You're not going to go into the Vatican without your shoulders covered. There is a respect and expectation there. And I love that Rafe is aware of that, and he respects Diana in their first interaction. And yeah, she's naked, and Ellerin's freaking out, put some clothes on. And he's literally just looking in her eyes, having a conversation. And he goes, but I will suggest, just around here, just it's culturally appropriate for you to, to carry on like this. Over on this side, it's culturally acceptable to wear clothes. And she's like, okay, I was just trying to cool off, but I understand where you're coming from. Hold on, and I love, since they're meet cute, I really adored them.
And of course, Rafe wants to become Lupine because he doesn't, Gardnerians suck. And that's
Can we just shout out that a man it's another example of a man saying, like, I'm going to change for her. Like, it's not always the woman having to change for.
Yeah, I'm going to join her family. Yeah.
Right.
And then Elloren's other brother, Tristan, is gay. And Elloren has a problem with that. And of course, I have a problem that she has a problem.
Of course.
But in this world, I can understand why she would be like jarred by that.
I'm not surprised that she's, because of how she was raised. And even there was a line where they were talking about wand fasting, and Elloren goes, well, can't you just wand fast to a female? And why can't I think of his name right now? Tristan. He goes, well, can you just wand fast to a female? And she was,
shut her up.
Yeah, it shut her up. And I think that was when it really hit her. Like, and then the other part of the thing is, I thought she was going to come up with some concoction to wand fast to Aisley, so Aisley could be with Jared. Like, that was where I thought Elloren's mind might go.
I have 2 points, and I'd really love to hear your thoughts of them.
Oh, Lord.
Poppy, this is fresh in your mind, Poppy and Elloren give off the same naive, sheltered energy, and Elloren and Matthias give off the same, like, institutionalized, mind fucked, like, racism vibes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I see the Poppy a lot because Poppy was in her bubble. You know, Poppy was in a bubble her whole life. Same thing with Elloren, for what we know. However, I also kind of question it because her uncle, she lived with her uncle. She was raised by her uncle. I feel like maybe the environment of others being around her influenced her, because that was not the takeaway of the type of person her uncle was. Her uncle wanted to shelter her from that mentality. And I feel like once Elloren went to her Aunt Vivian's for a while, it just kind of ignited it, like this underlying hate that she might not have realized was there. But Matthias changed, obviously, but I don't know if he felt that way. I still don't know if did he really change, or was it only towards Nina?
Yeah, and we'll never, spoiler, we'll never know.
Right. So I don't know if it's like you have people who are racist and you're like, I'm not racist. I have a XYZ friend. And you're like, okay, but just because you have a friend doesn't mean that isn't still lying dormant, or you still don't have those thoughts with you. So I don't know about Elloren and Matthias, like, to an extent, but I do think Elloren has educated herself more because of the exposure with everybody, which is, again, like, it's another school that integrated, like, you think of like segregation in the 1960s, it needed to happen. There's like, you were forced, and you see it in so many movies, and it's not like it's this fantasy, it's real. This stuff happened and is happening. And it's just a very uncomfortable conversation to have in a very, like, in a fantasy book that's very relatable to now.
My last thing that I want to point out is that there is a kind of conversation that Elloren has with her professor where they're talking about the Gardnerians and like what happened, like how the Gardnerians came into power. 'Cause like they were the ones that were being oppressed for a long time by the Celts, and then they rose up, and the leader was Elloren's like great whatever grandfather, and who, to the Gardnerians is revered, but to everyone else is seen as like I think the quote is a madman and like a religious zealot.
That's what our Professor Christian said or something.
Which, I mean, so great. And then he goes on to say that the reason why the Gardnerians are able to use wand magic is because they aren't a pure race like Elrond's grandfather like made everyone believe, because right, like her grandfather, great, remove whatever.
You find out that they're mixed.
Yeah, they're mixed, and that he took this other culture's like holy book and then took some passages and made it his own, and then like applied these religious texts to his own kind of warped beliefs. And the Gardnerians are mixed with dryads, with tree fae, which is why they can use the magic, which is why they have, green shimmering skin, because dryads are green. They have green skin. And yeah, it's just really interesting that this whole culture is, built up on this idea of being a pure, clean, religious, race. We don't, partake in spirits. Our women are, covered. We're conservative, but they are what they're preaching that they're against. And, I don't know. It's just,
it's very pot kettle.
It is. And it's a lot to wrap your head around. It's a lot in a fantasy book, and knowing the rule of fantasy books, which is like the first one is the establishing book, and like the other ones are like the story. Where do you think this is going to go?
Oh, flash forward. I can't even say flash forward to the end. We know that there's going to be a resistance. We know the students are probably going to work with the teachers more, because that's how the professors, they set it up at the end where that they're going to be questioning, like, this is only level 5 mage magic and this is military magic. And there's a book missing where you find, because Aisley stole the military grimoire from her father. Her father in my head reminds me of who's like the leader in The Handmaid's Tale, like the lead guy, his character. Who's married to Serena. Yeah. That's what I have in my head. Like the commander, I think.
The commander. Yeah.
Oh, wait. Offred. So Fred. Fred. We got there. Fred. That's who her father reminds me of, as this commander having this grimoire. And part of me is like, they're all keeping their distance from each other, which also to me, that would be the red flag, to be like, they were all really close and now they're all super distant. Like, you should have just kept carrying on the way you were carrying on. That would have been my red flag. It's like, oh, you're idiots, but they're 17, whatever. But there's going to be an uprising. That pennant is bad news. I think she's either going to get like addicted to whatever the connection is, because it's also wood, and we know how her affinity is. Like, she can touch wood, and she could touch like a tree and know what type of like tree it is, or like she has that kind of.
There's a couple lines in this book where they emphasize the fact that Elrond feels the trees kind of like pulling away from her.
Oh,
yeah. So that she feels that she's in the forest and she feels the trees like push away from her, or like they don't want anything to do with her, and they're giving off like bad vibes and stuff. And she has a flashback kind of a forest on fire, which we know is her flashback from when she was wand tested, when she was a child, when she burned the forest down with her fire spell.
I didn't make that connection. I think I thought because she knew the tree. Like, she knew she would touch the material, and she just knew right away. So I would have thought it was something different. This is kind of like I feel like one of the first things fantasy reads where I'm not really speculating so much. I'm kind of going with it. I want to see the resistance. I want to see Lucas get played. Like, I want him to get played. I want Fallon, I don't think, like, I know she's not the Black Witch. I know she's not the prophecy. I find it interesting that nobody's making the connection that they were saying the wyverns or whatever that attacked Fallon. They're like, you're going to be fine. They're only after the Black Witch. And everybody just assumes it's Fallon because she's level 5 mage. And every time there's been an attack, Elrond's been there, and nobody's made that connection yet, that Yeah, because Elloren's the Black Witch. Like that's my assumption right now. I'm interested to see how that unfolds. Like because I remember telling you in this book, I go, is she going to get her magic? When are we going to find out? And then we don't find out. I don't have that, but it's a series and it's not a one-off book. So that's part of the whole journey. I also really, really want to see Aisley and Jared together. And I want a Wraith and Diana. It's YA, so I know we're not going to get anything regarding them mating, but I really want them to be just like declared before they're like their families. And I loved that also about Diana, where she goes, you don't have to be, she tells Elloren, she goes, you don't have to be Lupine. You're still my sister. Like there was just like this complete open embrace that I absolutely loved, because Elloren doesn't have that from her family. She has her brothers. And we know, I don't think her uncle is sick. I think Vivian made him sick. I believe that also. I want her uncle if he dies, I'm going to be so heartbroken for her, which he probably will because it's a YA fantasy. And I'm not looking at you because I just don't want to gauge your reactions right now.
Oh, no. Well, let's not forget her brothers got drafted.
Right. Her brothers got drafted. And like now I feel like they want to, like he goes, they're like, what are you going to do next? It's like, I'm going to be Lupine. It tries to kind of like move the timeline up a little bit. I'm really interested to see how it unfolds. And like it's not just about Elloren. I really like not even the side characters, the other characters in this book.
Well, I think now is a good way or a good time, I guess, to kind of touch
the not so fun stuff.
Yeah, the not so fun stuff to kind of touch on, because obviously it's clear, like, we like this book. We're going to keep reading this book, but there's issues about this book, and we have researched them to an extent, and we have discussed them, and we need to address them here. And just like we did for Blood and Ash, we will start off by saying that we are not experts. We are not the ones to speak on this. Please do your own research. Please do your own research. Please do your own research. However, there's some shit that we need to discuss.
Obviously I wasn't aware because YA was not even on my radar surrounding this book. But there were writers and reviewers who, it's like they never read the first book. It's like they got an excerpt of the first 3 chapters. And in my opinion, they created an entire cancel culture for this book.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And that can just, open doors to a bunch of other discussions about Goodreads and what that can do to an author, and what happens when only excerpts are posted and you form an opinion based on excerpts. So what happened was that, like, the excerpts were posted and people got really upset because obviously out of context, this book can be very racist. We've said it. It makes us uncomfortable. It's so, like, on the nose racist. And people were upset about that.
And it's not subtle. It's not subtle either.
No, it's loud, and it's, right there in your face. And people not having read the book were very upset about it before it came out. And then after it came out, all of that just kind of settled. And then now it's, a 5-book plus series.
And I think that's important to note, because here we are talking about, like, the importance of educating yourself, right? And sometimes even like book community in general, Bookstagram, it's so easy to fly off the handle without having the whole story. Like the one article that I was reading that you had shared with me, Laura, it was a reviewer on Goodreads. 1 star. They said 1 star. I wish I could give it 0 stars. Went on a spiral to the point where they were stalking the author, paid to get the author, when you could do a paid background check, was doing paid background checks on the author's family, screenshots of where her parents were living. This person was set off in 1 chapter. And I'm like, look, I'm the first person who will admit to not finishing a book, but I'm not going to go spiral. Like, obviously, to me, there were bigger issues there. That person even said, I only read one chapter, and you're stalking this author's life. Like, that's, but even some of the reviews and some of the writers, because there's such a voice there, like that one person can have such a voice, there is blind loyalty to a fault from other people attacking the author, attacking the publishing house. How can you do this? How are you going to make amends? Which I'm all about holding people accountable. But do we have the full story first, or are we just blindly retweeting without understanding how we're educating ourselves first? And I think that's the biggest conversation that needs to be had. Things need to be said. People can have opinions, but are we having blind opinions?
Yeah, no doubt. And are we having blind opinions, and are we surrounding ourselves with people that also have the same opinions? So it's like, bouncing back and forth and just kind of getting yourself like frothing at the mouth about something and not getting any sort of discussion going.
Well, I mean, the perfect example of that is just in politics in general. When you're only getting your news source from one specific place, and you don't have a counter argument, and it doesn't even need to be, I remember like one of the great things that I learned in school is you can have multiple resources, but make sure that one of those resources is also outside of our U.S. perspective. And because we are in it, right? And whereas other countries can be more objective in regards to their opinions or their facts, or where they're like not even formulating their own opinions. Here's the information. This is what they're feeding out, and I think that's important in regards to any time you're trying to educate yourself and have those conversations, like you said, to have a different perspective.
As we mentioned, there are some articles that we read between us. I think there's 3 or 4.
I think it's 4.
Yeah, we won't, discuss them in detail here because, Sam has to edit and we don't want him to have to go through that. We will post the articles that we are referring to in the episode description so that you can take some time and read about these things and educate yourself and do your own research, because, it's one thing to be told how things are, and it's another thing to form your own opinions, and forming your own opinion on something is pretty fantastic. So please, please, please do your own research. We're not experts. We're simply pointing out the glaring issue.
I think that wraps it up. Hope you enjoyed this episode. We know that it was completely not on the realm of book talk. You don't really see this book talked about right now. So we just kind of branched out a little bit, and it made for a great conversation and interesting dialogue. We're going to be following up with the second book, The Iron Flower. We'll see where that takes us and go from there. Feel free to follow us on Instagram, ACOFAE Podcast, ACOFAE. We're also both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura, ACOFAE Laura, LAURA, and ACOFAE Jessica. We look forward to
JESSICA.
Yeah, but like, I guess, do people spell it differently than like the most basic way? Feel free to interact. We're here for fun,
Keep it respectful. We love you. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.